Your methods are too traditional for our new direction, she explained during my termination. We need digital-first leadership. My name is Colby Walsh. For 15 years I ran the Midwest sales division of Oaklight Publishing in Indianapolis. I built that team from nothing, turning a struggling territory into the company's top revenue generator. I didn't use fancy software or algorithms, just relationships, handshakes, and knowing which publishers needed what. By last year my division was bringing in 60% of the entire company's revenue. Not that anyone at the executive level seemed to notice until the quarterly reports landed on their desks. When Veronica Bennett took over as CEO 6 months ago, she arrived with PowerPoint presentations and consultants in expensive suits. Every meeting became about digital transformation and disrupting the traditional publishing model. She'd never worked in publishing before, came from some tech company in San Francisco, but the board loved her vision. I kept my head down, kept delivering results, but I could feel her eyes on me during leadership meetings. I was the oldest director there, the only one who still kept a physical calendar and visited clients in person instead of scheduling Zoom calls. The summons came on a Monday morning. Her assistant Jason looked uncomfortable when he appeared at my office door. She'd like to see you at 2 in the executive boardroom. I thanked him and returned to my call with Franklin Press, our biggest client. We were finalizing a 5-year contract extension worth $12 million, the kind of deal that happened because I'd had dinner with Thomas Franklin every quarter for a decade. The boardroom had been redesigned since Veronica arrived. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, a massive digital display where the traditional conference table used to be 3 people waited. Veronica, Jason, and someone from human resources I didn't recognize. I knew before she spoke. Colby, thank you for everything you've done for Oaklight, she began, hands clasped on the table, but we've decided to move in a different direction with leadership. I listened quietly as she explained how my methods were outdated, how they needed someone more aligned with their digital-first approach, someone younger, though she carefully avoided saying that part out loud. I thanked her for the opportunity, shook her hand, and walked out without arguing. 15 years ended in a 15-minute meeting. What Veronica didn't understand was that in publishing, especially with the old established houses that made up 80% of our business, trust wasn't built through algorithms or email campaigns. I cleared out my desk while the rest of the team was at lunch. No goodbyes, no scene, just quiet dignity. But when I got to my car I sat there for a long time staring at my phone. 3 missed calls from Thomas Franklin. He'd heard already. I started at Oaklight back when it was still called Midwestern Literary Partners, small operation then, just 20 employees and a handful of regional clients. I'd come from Heritage Books after they were bought out by one of the big New York houses. I'd walked away from a corner office and a 6-figure salary because I hated what corporate publishing was doing to the industry. Robert Oaklight hired me personally. We don't need someone who can crunch numbers, he'd said. We need someone who understands that books are still made by people who care about what's between the covers. For the first 5 years I rebuilt the division from scratch, put 70,000 on my car. Visiting every independent publisher between Ohio and Nebraska, I knew the names of their spouses, their kids. I went to weddings, funerals, retirement parties, not because it was strategic, because that's who we were. By the time Robert retired and his son William took over, we'd grown 400%. William understood the business even if he was more interested in the numbers than his father had been. He left me alone to run things my way. 3 years ago, when the board started talking about bringing in outside leadership to modernize operations, William fought them, but when cancer took him last year at 58 there was no one left to defend the old ways. The cracks started appearing before Veronica was even hired. Board meetings where the word antiquated kept coming up, questions about why our team hadn't leveraged social media or implemented CRM optimization. Jacob, my assistant director, who I'd been grooming to take over, one day started getting invitations to strategy meetings I wasn't included in. He'd report back uncomfortable with his new position as messenger there, talking about restructuring he'd told me 6 months ago, creating a digital sales team separate from traditional channels. I should have seen it coming. Should have noticed when they hired 3 new digital engagement specialists and put them on my team without consulting me, or when they started reassigning my long-term clients to the new team without explanation. Thomas Franklin had called me personally when they took his account away from me. Some kid called me today, told me he was my new account manager, said they were streamlining their customer interface or some. What's going on over there, Colby? Just some reorganization, I told him. Nothing to worry about, but I was worried. I just didn't know how to fight a battle when I didn't understand the weapons being used against me. The day after my termination I sat in my home office staring at my phone. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, 6 emails marked urgent, all from clients and industry contacts who'd heard the news. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even my wife Catherine, who was visiting our daughter in Columbus. I wanted to process it alone first. The call that finally made me pick up came from Thomas Franklin. What the hell happened? He demanded, skipping any greeting. They're going in a new direction, I said, repeating the corporate line. Thomas spat. You are that company to most of us. Do they understand that? I didn't answer. I met with that new guy yesterday, he continued. Drew something, spent 40 minutes showing me analytics and engagement metrics. Not once did he ask about our new historical fiction imprint, the one I told you was make or break for us this year. I closed my eyes, suddenly tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. They'll figure it out, Thomas No, they won't, he replied, because people like that never bother to learn what matters. They just impose their system and expect everyone to adapt. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and looked at the email Oaklight HR had sent with my severance details: 6 months pay, health insurance for 90 days, a non-disparagement clause, and a non-compete that prevented me from working with any of our clients for 1 year. I nearly laughed. They thought they could legally prevent decades-old relationships from continuing with a single document. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor Jenkins from Riverstone Press. This time another major client, another friendship built over years of trust. I heard what happened, she said when I answered. It's their loss. When you're ready to talk about what's next, call me. By evening I'd heard from 12 major clients representing over 40% of Oakenlight's annual revenue, all expressing the same sentiment: loyalty to me, not to the company I'd no longer be part of. I sat in my backyard as the sun set, nursing a bourbon and turning over an idea that had started as a tiny seed that morning but had grown with each conversation. They discarded me because my methods didn't fit their shiny new digital strategy, because I built relationships instead of analyzing data, because my client book was filled with handwritten notes instead of CRM entries. But what if those outdated methods were exactly what those clients valued? What if the very thing Veronica Bennett saw as my weakness was actually my greatest strength? I pulled out my phone and made a call to my attorney, Benjamin Weiss. Ben, I need you to look at something for me. A non-compete clause. They let you go? He asked, surprised. They did, and I think it might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I didn't want revenge, I just wanted to keep doing what I'd always done, helping publishers connect with the right partners. And if Oakenlight no longer valued that service, there were plenty of others who did. That night, for the first time since the termination meeting, I slept soundly. 2 weeks after my termination, I met with Benjamin in his downtown office. He'd reviewed my non-compete agreement and had news I didn't expect. It's essentially unenforceable, he said, sliding the document across his desk. They made a crucial mistake. The scope is too broad, the duration too long, and most importantly, they can't prevent you from using general knowledge and skills in your industry. So I could start my own consulting firm. I asked, you could? Benjamin nodded. But there's a catch: they'll still sue you if you try. Even if they ultimately lose, they can make the process expensive and painful. I considered this. Oakenlight had deep pockets and a board that wouldn't hesitate to use them against a perceived threat. What if I don't approach any clients directly? I asked. What if I just become available? Benjamin smiled. That's a different story entirely. The next day I filed paperwork to establish Walsh Publishing Consultants. No website, no marketing materials, no outreach campaign, just a legal entity that could accept payments and provide services. 3 days later Thomas Franklin called me. I hear you've set up shop, he said without preamble. News travels fast, I replied, in this business like wildfire. Listen, I need help with our winter catalog strategy. Oakenlight's new team is pushing us toward academic markets, but my instinct says we should double down on our historical series. I need someone who understands both the numbers and the readers. I'm still figuring out my next steps. Thomas, 15,000 for 2 months of strategic guidance. He countered, no direct competition with Oakenlight services, just helping us make good decisions. It was a generous offer and carefully structured to avoid direct conflict with my non-compete, but still I hesitated. I need to think about it. Don't think too long, Thomas said. We're making decisions next week. After hanging up, I received an unexpected call from Jacob, my former assistant director. Can we meet? He asked, his voice hushed. Not at the office, someplace quiet. We agreed on a small coffee shop near Eagle Creek Park, well away from downtown and the publishing scene. Jacob looked nervous when he arrived, constantly checking over his shoulder. It's bad, he said once we'd secured a corner table. They promoted me to your position, but I'm just a figurehead. All the real decisions are coming from the new digital team. That's not surprising, I replied. No, you don't understand. They're systematically dismantling everything you built. They've reassigned all your major accounts to the digital team. They're implementing a mandatory CRM system that none of the older sales representatives can navigate. 3 people have quit already. I took a sip of my coffee, keeping my expression neutral. And the clients? I asked. Jacob glanced around again before leaning in. Their furious. Riverstone is threatening to walk. Thomas Franklin hasn't returned calls in a week. The quarterly projections are catastrophic, and Veronica blaming the transition, saying it's expected turbulence. He hesitated. But there's more. They're watching you. Legal had a meeting about your non-compete yesterday. They're concerned you might poach clients. Now I understood his paranoia. He was risking his new position to warn me. Thanks for telling me this, Jacob. He nodded, then slid an envelope across the table. Client contact list updated with personal emails and cell numbers. He stood to leave. I didn't give you this, and we never met. Today after he left, I sat for a long time turning the envelope over in my hands. Using this information would be exactly what Oakenlight feared and expected. It would justify legal action against me, possibly even against Jacob. They'd set a trap anticipating my next move, which meant I needed to make a different one entirely. I left the envelope on the table untouched when I walked. A month passed. I hadn't contacted any Oakenlight clients despite daily calls from publishers asking for help. I deflected politely, citing professional considerations. The non-compete might be flawed, but I wasn't ready to test its limits. Instead, I focused on industry contacts outside Oakenlight's client list, small independent publishers, university presses, literary agents looking for guidance, work that wouldn't trigger legal issues but would keep me engaged in the field I loved. Then came the invitation I hadn't expected. Harold Blackwood, chairman of Oaken Light's board, asked to meet privately, not at the office, at his club downtown. I accepted out of curiosity more than anything else. The Indianapolis Gentlemen's Association was all dark wood and whispered conversations. Harold, 70 and silver-haired, waited in a private room with 2 tumblers of scotch already poured. "Thank you for coming, Colby," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite his. "I imagine you're wondering why I wanted to meet." The thought crossed my mind. He pushed one of the glasses toward me. "Things at Oaken Light aren't going as expected." I took a small sip, saying nothing. "Revenue is down 38% this quarter," Harold continued. "Client retention has fallen to its lowest point in company history. The digital initiative that was supposed to transform our business model has instead alienated our core client base." "That's unfortunate," I replied neutrally. Harold studied me. "You don't seem surprised. Publishing is a relationship business, always has been." "So I'm learning," he leaned forward. "The board is concerned about Veronica's leadership. Her strategies may have worked in tech, but publishing operates differently." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we'd like you to come back as Chief Revenue Officer, above Veronica in the hierarchy." I stared at him, processing the offer. "What about my replacement? Jacob's a good man, but he doesn't have your client relationships or industry knowledge. And Veronica, she'd accept this arrangement?" Harold's expression hardened. "She would have no choice." The pieces suddenly fit together. "This isn't about this quarter's revenue, is it? This has been building for longer." Harold sighed, the facade cracking. Veronica was William's hire, his last major decision before his illness became unmanageable. The board had reservations, but we deferred to him out of respect. After he passed, we gave her the opportunity to prove herself. She hasn't. And my termination was not approved by the board. We were informed after the fact, as were several other significant organizational changes. I sat back, understanding the full picture now. Veronica had been clearing out William's people, replacing them with her own. My dismissal wasn't about digital transformation. It was about removing anyone loyal to the previous leadership. "The offer is generous," Harold continued, "double your previous salary, full control of sales and client relationships, and the board's full backing to rebuild your team." It was everything I should have wanted: vindication, power, security. "I need time to consider," I said. "Of course, but don't take too long. The situation is deteriorating rapidly." On the drive home, I turned the conversation over in my mind. The board hadn't just realized they'd made a mistake with my termination, they'd known it was wrong from the beginning but had lacked the courage to stop it. Now that it was affecting their bottom line, suddenly they wanted me back. And there was something else, something Harold hadn't said explicitly but I'd understood anyway. They wanted me to be the hatchet man, to come back and dismantle everything Veronica had built and eventually Veronica herself. They didn't want me for my relationship skills, they wanted me for my client list and the loyalty that came with it. The realization didn't make me angry, it made me certain about what I needed to do next. I declined Harold's offer the next morning with a brief, polite email. His response came within minutes, an offer to increase the compensation package. Further, I didn't reply. Instead, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Thomas Franklin. "I'm ready to discuss that consulting arrangement," I told him, "but I'd like to suggest a different approach." "I'm listening," he said. "I won't consult exclusively for Franklin Press. Instead, I'm forming a collective, a consortium of independent publishers who share resources, distribution channels, and market intelligence. No long-term contracts, no corporate bureaucracy, just publishers helping publishers, with me facilitating the connections." There was silence on the line. "Then, how many others have you approached?" "None yet, you're the first call, because I was your biggest client." "Because I trust your judgment," I corrected. "If you think it's a viable model, I'll move forward. If not, I'll stick to traditional consulting." Thomas didn't hesitate. "I'm in, and I know at least 5 others who would be too." My second call was to Eleanor Jenkins at Riverstone Press. As I expected, she not only embraced the consortium idea but suggested refinements to the structure, including a shared digital platform that would give the smaller publishers the reach of a larger organization without sacrificing their independence. The third call was to Benjamin, my attorney, to ensure the plan wouldn't violate my non-compete agreement. "You're not working for their clients," he confirmed after hearing the details. "You're creating an entirely new entity that their clients choose to join. It's a subtle distinction, but a legally meaningful one." Within 2 weeks, Walsh Publishing Consortium had 7 founding members, all former Oaken Light clients who had either already left or were planning to when their contracts expired. Each contributed to an operational fund that would cover my salary and the basic infrastructure needed. The key to the plan wasn't just building a competing organization, it was creating something Oaken Light couldn't easily replicate. A cooperative structure where publishers maintained their independence while gaining the benefits of collective resources. No one appointed me CEO or gave me a fancy title. I was simply the facilitator, the connector who understood what each member needed and who could provide it. We rented a modest office space in Broad Ripple, away from the downtown business district where Oaken Light and other corporate publishers clustered. I hired 2 staff members, a recent college graduate to handle communications and social media, and a veteran publishing operations manager who had recently retired but wasn't ready to stop working entirely. Word spread quickly through the close-knit publishing community. By the end of the first month, 3 more publishers had joined the consortium. By the end of the second, we had to expand to larger offices. I was careful never to directly solicit Oaken Light's clients. I didn't need to, they came to us, drawn by the success stories they were hearing and the frustrations they were experiencing with the digital-first approach that ignored the personal relationships at the heart of publishing. Jacob called one evening in late September, 2 months after we'd launched. "They know what you're doing," he said without preamble. "Veronica's furious. She's talking about legal action." "We haven't violated any agreements," I replied calmly. "That won't stop her from trying," he paused. "There's a board meeting tomorrow, quarterly results. It's going to be ugly." "That's not my concern anymore, Jacob." "I know," he hesitated. "I thought you should know, and I wanted to ask, is there room for one more at your new venture? I've reached my breaking point here." I smiled to myself. Everything was proceeding exactly as I'd anticipated, not because I was seeking revenge, but because I understood the industry in a way Veronica never would. "Come by the office tomorrow," I told him. "We'll talk." The quarterly earnings call in October told the story. Numbers never lie. Oaken Light Publishing reported a 45% drop in revenue compared to the same quarter the previous year. Their stock dropped 17% in a single day. I didn't listen to the call myself, I was in a strategy meeting with 15 consortium members, planning our collective approach to the upcoming industry conference in Chicago. Thomas texted me the highlights: Veronica blaming market disruption and transitional challenges, no mention of the elephant in the room that their biggest clients jumped ship. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Colby Walsh?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Patricia Harrington from the Oaken Light Board of Directors." Her tone was clipped, formal. "I'm calling to inform you that we've voted to waive your non-compete agreement, effective immediately. We've also authorized our legal team to prepare a cease and desist regarding what we consider to be interference with our client relationships." I waited, letting the silence stretch. "Do you have any response, Mr. Walsh?" "Just one question," I said finally. "Have you spoken with your clients directly? Not through account managers or satisfaction surveys, actually sat down with Thomas Franklin or Eleanor Jenkins and asked why they left?" "That's not relevant to—" "It's the only thing that's relevant," I interrupted. "They didn't leave because I started something new. They left because Oaken Light stopped valuing what mattered to them." "The board meeting is still in session," she said after a moment. "Perhaps you'd care to join us and explain your perspective directly." "I appreciate the invitation, but I'm in the middle of my own meeting with 15 publishers who've chosen a different path." She was silent for so long, I thought the call had dropped. "I see," she said finally, and hung up. The cease and desist never arrived. 3 days later, the business section of the Indianapolis Star ran the headline, "Oaken Light CEO steps down amid financial turbulence." 6 months after starting the Walsh Publishing Consortium, we moved into permanent offices in a renovated warehouse in Fountain Square. 23 member publishers now, with a waiting list of others wanting to join. We'd expanded beyond Indiana to include small and mid-sized publishers throughout the Midwest. The industry had taken notice. We'd been featured in Publishers Weekly and the New York Times business section. "The relationship revolution in publishing," one headline called it. I hadn't set out to create a movement, just to preserve what I knew worked. But sometimes the old ways become revolutionary again when people remember why they mattered in the first place. Harold Blackwood called on a Tuesday morning. Oaken Light had a new CEO now, promoted from within, someone who'd been with the company for decades. "We'd like to discuss the possibility of Oaken Light joining your consortium," he said, no preamble. I smiled to myself. "That's not how it works, Harold. We're not acquiring members of your size." "Perhaps a partnership arrangement then?" "I'll bring it to our leadership council," I told him, though I already knew what the answer would be. The publishers who joined us had done so precisely to escape the corporate approach Oaken Light represented. After hanging up, I walked through our open office space. No executive suite for me, just a desk among the others, where I could be part of the daily conversations that kept us connected to what mattered. Jacob looked up from his workstation. "Everything okay?" "Just fine," I nodded. "Oaken Light wants to join the consortium." He laughed. "Talk about coming full circle." Later that afternoon, I drove to Eagle Creek Park and sat by the water, the same spot where I used to come and think when problems at Oaken Light seemed overwhelming. But today, there were no problems to solve, just a quiet satisfaction in knowing that what I'd built would last, not because it was revolutionary or disruptive, but because it was built on something that never really changes, people trusting people who've earned it. Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to you, not because it leads to revenge, but because it forces you to build something more authentic than what you left behind.